Welcome back, everybody, to the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise here on Madden 21 for the PS5. Today, we have free agency here in season number 4. Not just free agency, we also have re-signings. We're going to do trades. We're going to talk about combines. We're really going to do everything leading up to the draft. Of course, our Jaguars have won the Super Bowl. I know it doesn't show Aaron Rodgers' stats there. That's only because he has retired. But it was a very exciting year for us. We won our first championship in franchise history. And the goal for this offseason is to set ourselves up to repeat. And now in real life, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers brought back all of their starters from last year's Super Bowl team. That's not going to happen with us because we have a lot of guys who need contract extensions, and unfortunately, we do not have unlimited money. Luckily, we did not have anybody from our team retire, although there were a bunch of big names such as Gronk, Adam Thielen, Cam Jordan, and of course, Aaron Rodgers, who left his career with a Super Bowl loss, which is someone who strongly dislikes the Packers. I would not mind that happening. The first stage of the offseason is the re-sign period, and we have 6 starters: Josh Allen, Myles Jack, Brandon Linder, David Njoku, Brian Burns, and J.K. Dobbins, who are all due for contract extensions, along with many notable depth players as well. If you subtract the cap number by the rookie reserve, we have roughly $116 million to spend. I think I could bring back all 6 of those guys if I wanted to, but we have a lot of young players who are going to be needing extensions within the next few years, and we just cannot afford to bring back all 6 of those guys. So we're going to have to let some players go, and we're going to have to make way of other players in order to clear up cap. So we're going to have to be smart with how we allocate our money this offseason. We're going to re-sign a few depth players, such as running back Davion Riddick and wide receiver Mookie Baker. Neither of these two really did a whole lot in the playoffs, but they did have some nice moments in the regular season when stepping up for injured players. Now let's talk about our big 6 right here. And obviously the headline name here is Josh Allen, who had 17.5 sacks this year, I believe. Now, Josh Allen was a lot better in the first half of the season than he was the second half. After he had that 7-sack game against Pittsburgh earlier in the year, he was quiet, although he did record 2.5 sacks in the postseason and 1 in the Super Bowl. Long story short, we cannot let Josh Allen go. He has to stay. And if we don't re-sign him, we will franchise tag him. So I'm not overly stressed about this. We're going to move it down from 4 years to 3, but we're going to up the average salary a little bit. So it's a 3-year deal for $52.3 million, and he accepts. So Josh Allen will be back up until his age 30 season, which is great because we need him. There is center Brandon Linder, who is 32 years old now. We're going to lowball him a little bit. He wants about $10 million over 1 year. I will offer 7.5. He says no, and the franchise tag for him is about 17.5 million. So if I'm not willing to do 10, I'm not doing 17. So Brandon Linder will hit the open market. I'm not opposed to re-signing him in free agency, but we're not going to do it here. Myles Jack is a very interesting case. Jack has been very good for us throughout this series, but he struggled last year. He's had a hard time staying healthy, but he was fully healthy last year, but he just wasn't all that good. He wants a similar contract to what Josh Allen is asking for, and to be quite frank, I'm not willing to do that. 1 year, $15 million, I think, is more fair. I want to sort of give him a shorter-term prove-it deal just so we know that he's not on the downswing, and rather that it was just a down year last year. His tag number would be $16.2 million, which I think is a lot more reasonable and something I may want to consider. David Njoku is an interesting case. He has also had a hard time staying healthy, but he did this year, and he made the most of it. With a career high in receptions and yards, I think he tied his career high total in touchdowns, and he was one of the better tight ends in the NFL last year. He wants 4 years, $28.4, which I don't think is terrible, but we do have a lot of young tight ends, and I don't really want to give him a 4-year deal. Brian Burns was a fairly easy one for me. We signed him into a 1-year contract last year, and he had 7 sacks. He was fine. But he really did not do a whole lot the second half of the year. He did get 2 sacks in the AFC Championship game, but only half a sack in the regular season after the bye week. I'm not willing to pay him $15 million, and with us re-signing Josh Allen, I think it'd be pointless to bring him back. So Brian Burns will be let go. I don't have much interest in bringing him back. J.K. Dobbins was a tough one because throughout the year, I was very sure I was going to let him go. But the numbers show that we're a better team when he's healthy. In the 5 games he missed, we went 2-3. In the 11 games he played, we went 9-2. Not to mention, he was our best running back throughout the playoffs. With R.J. Ewell kind of disappointing, J.K. Dobbins really stepped up, and I think he was the unsung hero of the Super Bowl, racking up over 110 yards from scrimmage. And without him, I don't know if we would have won that game. He's asking for 4 years, 17, which I don't think is too bad, and I'm not opposed to doing that in free agency, but I think we will let him walk for now. So that brings us to this next batch of players. Not going to spend a ton of time on them because they're mostly depth guys. I do want to re-sign Volker Gantz. I know he had his ups and downs, but overall he was pretty good for the most part last year, and I think he will be our kicker next season. Damian Lewis is the only offensive lineman who really could stay on the field. Our O-line was very injury-prone last year, and Damian Lewis was a steady rock, so I'd like to bring him back 1 year, about $3.5 million. And then Sam Alford, a young developmental guy, hasn't seen the field a ton with us, but I do want to have him back. And then I want to sign a few more offensive line backups in Bo Knowles and Donovan Springs. We really lacked offensive line depth last year with a lot of guys getting hurt, so I want to have as many backups as I can. Unfortunately, Trace McSorley will decline our offer. I believe Trace McSorley is the only one who did. So those are all the players we're going to re-sign. These are all the guys we will not re-sign, but we're not going to let them all go to the open market. I do plan on using the franchise tag on Myles Jack. If I'm willing to give him $15 million for 1 year, 16.2 is not that much of an increase. Although Myles Jack was not very good last season, I do want to give him another chance, and I hope it was just one down year. If he plays poorly again next season, we can just let him walk and we don't have to worry. So that'll now bring us to free agency. We have a lot of money to spend, and I'm willing to make some moves, and Derrick Henry is in the free agency class. That's an interesting one. There are some other good players such as Tyron Smith, DeMarcus Lawrence, Mitchell Schwartz, Darius Slay, and a lot of our former names as well. But obviously the headliner is Derrick Henry, which with our somewhat hole at running back with losing J.K. Dobbins, that's an interesting one. Stealing him away from a divisional rival, that's a very interesting one. So currently we have around $63 million in cap space. I would like to clear some cap, and we're going to add some players to the trade block, including Antonio Gandy-Golden, who did not see the field a ton last year. I don't plan on trading K'Lavon Chaisson, but I want to see what I can get for him. I have no reason to trade him, but I just want to gauge interest. Leighton Vander Esch is a player I plan on moving on from this offseason. He's had trouble staying on the field in his 2 seasons with us, and I just don't think he's really worth keeping around. We're also going to add Myles Jack. I don't feel like I have to trade him, but maybe we really don't think we can get a long-term deal with him done, and maybe we do want to find a new home for him. I am going to be adding CJ Henderson as well. Henderson is on the last year of his deal. He had a down season this year. I'm not planning on trading CJ Henderson unless the opportunity arises, but I do want to see what I can get. Our cornerback situation is very interesting with Zaire Wiggins having the season he did, and we also have Bob Adams, who I think can be a starter, so I think that makes CJ Henderson expendable, and I don't want to pay both of our top 2 corners big money, and with how Zaire Wiggins played, I don't think we want to let him go anytime soon, so maybe trading CJ Henderson would make some sense, and we'll talk about a possible CJ Henderson trade later in the video. But first, let's go back to free agency and start to make some moves. A name who popped out at me early was right tackle Tristan Wirfs. Our current right tackle Orlando Brown is on the last year of his deal. He has trouble staying healthy, and I think Tristan Wirfs does have the flexibility to play tackle as well as guard. So I was interested in signing him 2 years, $16 million. I think that's a bargain, considering it seems like everyone wants Mitchell Schwartz for some reason, even though he's way older. The tight end market was talented, a few good players. I decided to offer David Njoku 1 year for around $7 million. I do want to bring Njoku back, and I think $7 million a year is fine. I just didn't want to pay him 4 years, so we ended up offering him. I wanted to look at linebacker as well. I wanted to get someone who is big, athletic, and can cover, because our linebackers could not cover a fly last year. Akeem Davis-Gaither fills exactly that, so we're going to do 1 year around $3.5 million. The other notable free agent we went after is Noah Igbenogany, the corner, who can compete possibly for a slot role. We also went after a few depth players as well, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, but we also went after some quarterbacks as well, possibly try to look to get an upgrade with our third stringer. So we will simulate the week. I really thought about Derrick Henry, though. And I had to think about this one probably for a good 10-15 minutes. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. I decided not to, but don't get me wrong, I was tempted, and I think having Derrick Henry in our offense will be fun, but I decided against it. So we are going to simulate the week. Hopefully we get lucky, and we definitely did. Tristan Wirfs does accept the contract. Igbenogany does as well, along with a lot of the depth guys. So the only players left are Njoku, Davis-Gaither, and the 2 quarterbacks. Njoku and Davis Gaither both have some interest, and we do have enough money to extend their offers, so that's what I'm going to do. I want to bring both of these guys in, and now the tight end class is a lot weaker with guys like Darren Waller signing, so I do want to make it a priority to get Njoku. The offers with our 2 quarterbacks will not change as we sim the week, and Njoku, Davis Gaither, and Michael Granson Jr. all accept, so Trace McSorley is the only one left. Orlando Brown is now healthy. I actually decided to add him to the trade block. I don't think we have to trade him. I think Tristan Wirfs can play guard, but I do want to see what I can get for him. One of the fifth-year options, we have 2 guys here. Both of them are no-brainers, including Zaire Wiggins. The assistant GM says, judging by his performance last year, he doesn't deserve one, and he barely saw the field. Well, Zaire Wiggins recorded 12 interceptions and had the greatest season for a modern defensive back ever. So I think, A, his performance justifies a fifth-year option, and I think he saw the field regularly. He started every game. He didn't get hurt. So, are we watching the same team, buddy? Because I don't think you can use those words to describe Zaire Wiggins. And then with Bentley Vonderwalson, again, barely saw the field. He was our starting left tackle. He started every game for us, and I'm pretty sure he made the Pro Bowl. So, I don't know what you're smoking, bud, but these are 2 no-brainer fifth-year options, and they're both no-brainer extensions once we eventually have to re-sign them, which will be in 2 years. So I simulated the next week, and now we're starting to get some trade interest for some of our players. McSorley did not accept for whatever reason, which is kind of odd. So we're going to start with Leighton Vander Esch. Of the guys on the block, Vander Esch is the only one who I feel like I really want to trade, just because I feel like there's no reason to keep him. He's on the last year of his deal. His first year with us, he got hurt. Last year, he really had trouble seeing the field, and he wasn't all that impressive. So the offer we're going to do is this Denver one. We're going to get their next 2 fourth-round picks. I probably could try to stretch like a second-round pick from somebody, but that's not realistic. Keep in mind, this is the first pick of the 4th round we're getting because Denver is not very good. They won 1 game this year. And that 4th rounder next year could be pretty high because, again, they're probably not going to be great. Now let's talk about the other 3 guys. So I don't feel like we have to trade unless I see an offer I like, starting with Orlando Brown, and these trades don't really interest me. I get that Orlando Brown had trouble staying healthy, and I don't think he played at all for us in the postseason, but I don't think any of these offers really entice me enough to move on from him. So we're going to keep him for this last year, and if he plays well, we'll re-sign him. If not, we can let him go, and we can slide Tristan Wirfs back over to offensive tackle. Wirfs is very athletic, and I think he should be able to adjust to guard fairly well, and we're getting ourselves a big upgrade with having Wirfs and Brown on the right side of the offensive line. Again, with Miles Jack, I didn't want to trade him unless I saw an offer I liked, and there wasn't really anything that interested me enough. I think a 3rd-round pick is fair value for him, but I would just rather keep him for this year than get that 3rd-round pick. The last one is CJ Henderson, who's the most interesting. We would need to get ourselves an absolute haul for CJ Henderson, and these trades are just not it. I am not trading a 25-year-old, 90 overall superstar X-Factor corner for 2 mid-round picks. I get that he's on the last year of his deal. I get that he struggled last year, but those are just not good offers. So I really decided to think about CJ Henderson. Do I really want to trade him? And I came to the conclusion that trading CJ Henderson now would be in our best interest. I get that CJ Henderson has had some really good moments with us the past 4 years. He has superstar X Factor. He's a beast. He's a really, really good player, and if we didn't have Zaire Wiggins, I would have no reason to trade CJ Henderson. But Henderson did have a down year last year. He's on the last year of his contract, and with Zaire Wiggins not having a whole lot left either on his rookie deal, I just can't justify paying 2 corners top dollar. Plus, we have Bob Adams, who can start on the outside next year, and Noah Igbenogany can play the slot. So it's not like we struggle when it comes to depth at corner. So I think trading CJ Henderson right now would be a really smart idea, and that's what we're going to do. So now the question is, who needs CJ Henderson? And the price for him is going to be big. I want at least a first-round pick, and I wanted to look at teams towards the top 10 of this draft. I knew I wasn't going to get anything in like the top 3, so I didn't bother looking at like Denver or Houston. But I wanted to look for teams a little bit down the board who may be interested in competing next year rather than taking a shot on a rookie. The Chargers allowed the second most points last year, and they're a good team. I think they would make sense. The Pittsburgh Steelers also make sense as well. I think they would be interested in competing as well. The Chargers have picked 5. The Steelers have picked 6. I would certainly love to get a top 6 pick for CJ Henderson. I don't think that's all that reasonable, but I do want to possibly experiment with some trade ideas. The Chargers don't really need corner. They have 3 good players who are all young. The Steelers, on the other hand, do need a corner. So I think the Pittsburgh Steelers really would make a lot of sense. They have a young and upping quarterback in Stephen Westwood. They have a lot of talented players on their roster. And this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They like to win. They've picked in the top 10 3 years in a row, and I think they want to compete. So I wanted to find possibly a player who I may be interested in as well, and a name who really stuck out to me was linebacker Devin Bush. Bush has kind of struggled the past few seasons with the Steelers. He hasn't fully stayed healthy, and he hasn't played all that well when he's been on the field. And I think a new change of scenery could do him well. Now, I understand we're not going to be able to get Devin Bush and the 6th pick for CJ Henderson straight up, but it is something I do want to try to think about. So we're going to offer Henderson in 2/3 for Bush in 6, and it's in the yellow, which is fair. So I wanted to try to find maybe a player I'd be willing to trade. There were a few guys I thought about, but nothing I really wanted to do. I did offer Tyler Matthews in a 3rd round pick. It didn't really move up. So we're going to possibly look at some other teams, maybe come back to the Steelers if necessary. The Bucs have Devin White at middle linebacker, who I would love, but they don't have a reason to trade Devin White, and I don't think we're really going to get anything going with the Bucs. I tried a few experiments. I think we could get Louis Kanya if we wanted to, but that's not realistic because why would the Giants ever want to trade him? I thought about possibly doing this with the Raiders, getting a guy like Popeye Rainwater II, Seattle with Jeremiah Serwick, possibly CJ Henderson for Ori Euluko straight up with the Washington football team. That would be interesting. Maybe pick 7 and Kez October from the Rams. A lot of interesting ideas, but at the end of the day, I was really drawn to the idea of doing the Steelers trade. And after really thinking about it, maybe trading Myles Jack here would make sense. I think Myles Jack and Devin Bush both need a new change of scenery. I think the Steelers would prefer Jack to Devin Bush, and I think we would prefer Devin Bush to Myles Jack. So I put Myles Jack in. I offered a 3rd. I wanted to get a player back as well, so we're going to try to get defensive tackle Hayes. They say no, but it's in the green. So I replaced Hayes with a 7th round pick, and it's even closer. I took out the 7th round pick. I used our highest 3rd rounder, and they say no. I'm not willing to give up any more, so this ends the idea of doing the Steelers trade. So I decided to go to the Chargers, a team we also talked about earlier. I'm going to do CJ Henderson in 2/3 for pick 5 and Isaiah Clemings, who is their 3rd corner. Clemings is good and young. He's 23, 78 overall, and I don't think the Chargers would really need him if they did this trade. So I ended up offering this one, and although they said no, again, it was pretty close. It was right around where the Devin Bush trade was. And again, I'm not really willing to give up any more. So this is really where I came to the realization that I'm probably not going to be able to get a top pick and something else. I did this one with the Rams and Kez October. Wasn't happening. So it's pretty much, do I want just a top pick? Or do I want a good young player and maybe a later pick? I thought about doing this trade with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders have pick 19, which is a little bit lower than what I was looking for. But we are interested in a couple young players on their team, guys like Popeye Rainwater II and Justin McGee. And they actually almost accepted that one. I was really tempted by it. I decided to go back to the Chargers, though, first, and I decided to scrap the idea of getting a 1st round pick and instead offer CJ Henderson and Tyler Matthews for Octavius October, Isaiah Clemings, and a 3rd round pick. I decided to offer this trade, and sure enough, the Los Angeles Chargers accepted it. So CJ Henderson is now an LA Charger, and we are not getting a top draft pick, but we are getting some good young players. So let's look at this trade from a Chargers perspective. Tyler Matthews is going to be a solid starter at defensive tackle. He's not a player I was overly attached to, and I was willing to throw him into a deal. And of course, CJ Henderson is now an LA Charger. I think they're going to be willing to pay him the big bucks. Look at this cornerback trio of Henderson, King, and Anthony Mitchell. That is absolutely scary. But for our perspective, I love this deal. I think this is a home run move for us. We're getting 2 players who I'm really excited about. Isaiah Clemings, I think, can play in the slot. He will likely compete with Noah Igbenogany for that spot. Clemings is only 23 years old. He was a Chargers 1st round pick last year. I think he's really good and really talented. And I think our cornerback room, even without CJ Henderson, is still one of the best ones in the NFL. However, the big piece of this trade is defensive tackle Octavius October, who, like CJ Henderson, is on the last year of his contract, and I don't think the Chargers wanted to pay him long term. But I am, because I would rather pay him big money than pay 2 corners big money. October is a beast. 10 tackles for loss last year, 10 sacks. He's great in the run. He's great as a pass rusher as well. And we really strengthened our defensive line. This kid is an absolute stud, and I can't believe we were able to get him. I also was able to get a third-round pick because I think the players we are giving them are slightly better. Although Octavius October is really good, I think CJ Henderson is the bigger asset, so I figured adding a draft pick would be nice, and it happens to be pick 69, so for the memes, yay. So CJ Henderson is officially gone. He's now an LA Charger, and Octavius October and Isaiah Clemmings are now with us. So that'll do it for trade talks. I know that was a lot to take in, but I'm happy with what we did. Let's now talk about the combines. We're going to look at some notable performance, and we're also going to do a first-round mock draft as well. Nothing overly notable with the quarterbacks. We're not going to draft a quarterback this year. Enough said. At running back, someone who stood out was Isaiah Sparks with a 7.6. We have not addressed our running back spot. All we have is RJ Ewell, so picking a running back this year is something I'm definitely considering. I'm also considering addressing the wide receiver position. Kayvon McDaniels is really good. He would probably be a trade-up candidate. Ogugunda Ogufara out of Georgia had an outstanding combine, 7.7. Tegan Moon ran a 4.31. So there are a lot of options at the wide receiver position, and I would like to add another playmaker. Tight end Ciante Cunningham would also be a trade-up candidate, but he's really good. He's pretty much Kyle Pitts, but slightly worse. Offensive line is not as big of a need as it was to start the offseason with the addition of Tristan Wirfs, but it's never a bad idea to add offensive linemen. The 27-year-old guard from Princeton, Gorakov Rodionovic, benched 45 reps on the bench. That guy is huge. Looking at the defensive line, the notable performer here was Ray Darius St. Montclair, the projected number 2 overall pick, who had a 7.5. And of course, defensive tackle Big Tuna, Richard Rivers Jr., who is 6'11", 380, ran a 4.5 40-yard dash with a 40-inch vertical and benched 45 reps on the bench. He has to go number 1. If the Denver Broncos don't pick him, everybody on that front office deserves to be fired. Richard Rivers Jr. is probably the best prospect to enter the NFL, to be honest, ever. So, yeah, Denver should be awfully happy they only won 1 game this year because he's a beast. Linebackers, definitely a position I'd like, and there are a few big performers here. 7.3 for Denver Hurd, 7.4 for Tyson Clifton, 7.2 for Stephon Hampton. At corner, look out for Joe Lilly, who had a great combine performance. We don't need corner, but imagine Joe Lilly and Zaire Wiggins together. That would be so much fun. A lot of good safeties as well, a big 7 for one of the 5th rounders, and then Shanara Budga also recorded a 7. By the way, I have not introduced you guys to this punter, Ivan Yegorovic, who is a first-round projected player. He was actually originally the quarterback, Carmen Casiano, out of Texas, but Casiano decided to stay for his senior season, so I decided to turn him into a glitchy punter. So here's the first-round mock draft I have created. Richard Rivers Jr. goes number 1 overall to the Denver Broncos, no surprise. 2 quarterbacks, Leo Uwangale out of Boise State at 4 to the Washington football team, and Sigurd Romanovskis, the Latvian laser, at 15 to New England. For us at 32, I was getting wide receiver D.D. Winterblossom out of Kansas. We haven't really improved the offensive skill positions in free agency. We have a nice opportunity, too, in the draft. Only 3 Westlake Hornets projected to go in round 1, all in the top 11, with Big Tuna at 1 to Denver, Joe Lilly at 6 to the Steelers, and wide receiver Cassius Troy at 11 to the Arizona Cardinals. So that'll do it for the Combine. Now let's talk about the free agency recap, and then that'll pretty much end the video. We went over a lot of stuff today. This was a very high-action episode. So there are a few notable players who have not signed. Tony Pollard, the best one of that group. Trace McSorley never accepted our offer. I don't really know why. So here's a look at our free agents. David Njoku, Tristan Wirfs, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and Noah Igbenogany are the main ones. We signed some good depth pieces as well, and Horton Kowalski. We brought back Ike Schwartz-Raymond, one of our former draft picks, Kari Ellison, Kadeem Barton, Michael Granson, Jalen Kelly, and the big defensive tackle, Mulian Nico, another one of our former draft picks. So Derrick Henry signs with the Jets. 3 years, $31 million. They have like 480-plus overall running backs. But none of them are better than Derrick Henry. So the Jets just got a little bit scarier. The Dallas Cowboys lost a few pieces with Tyron Smith going to the Bucs and DeMarcus Lawrence going to the Denver Broncos. The Minnesota Vikings gave Brian Burns a big contract. They gave him pretty much what we paid Josh Allen. I was definitely not willing to do that, but I think Brian Burns is worth close to that money. Brian Burns is not the only notable player we lost, with Brandon Linder signing with the Jets. J.K. Dobbins is going to Atlanta. He will compete with Todd Gurley for the starting running back position. Josh Jackson also signed with the Minnesota Vikings. So Minnesota taking a couple of our players away. A few other big contracts handed out as well. A lot of good receivers in this class. Brandon Ayuk, Corey Davis, Deontay Johnson, Devontae Parker, John Ross, Michael Pittman, Sterling Shepard, and T. Higgins, all changing teams, which is very significant. There were a few quarterbacks who ended up signing to new places as well. The main quarterback in this class was Jameis Winston, who is now back in our division, leaving the Colts as Rodney Allen's backup, and he is now the starter for the Tennessee Titans, who also signed Jonathan Taylor to replace Derrick Henry. So Jameis Winston and Jonathan Taylor is the new backfield in Nashville. That will definitely be interesting to see. The other notable quarterback in this class was Cam Newton. He re-signed with the New England Patriots, but I do think they could consider a guy like Sigurd Romanovskis or even Leo Uwangale in the first round if he does fall. So that will conclude today's episode. Next time will be the NFL Draft. I plan on premiering that this Monday. Our Jags have a lot of picks. We have our first, our second, 3/3, 2/4, and a 7. We have a lot of flexibility, and with a few players like Orlando Brown and Miles Jack who could possibly be used as trade pieces, maybe we look to trade up and try to get one of these really good prospects. So that'll end today's video. Let me know what you thought of our free agency in the comments. What do you think of the CJ Henderson, Octavius October trade? And what should we look to do in the NFL Draft? Should we look to move up? Should we look to move down? Any specific players we should look at? Any specific positions? Make sure to let me know, because I do want to hear your guys' impact, and I'm excited to hopefully get this team in a better position than we were at the start of the offseason to possibly become not only repeat Super Bowl champions, but maybe even a dynasty. So that'll do it. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And as always, have a good one. Peace out.